Have you ever, stared at a massive 20-foot digital menu spanning 4 different TVs and just wondered how the video doesn't look like a stretched out, pixelated mess?
Yeah, it's something you see everywhere, but you never really think about.
Right. Well, today we are doing a deep dive into the $450 hidden brain that makes that exact magic happen. We are exploring the technical spec sheet for the WolfPack 4K 60Hz 2x4 TV video wall controller.
And our mission today is basically figuring out how this hardware turns a single video feed into a giant, totally customizable multi-screen wall.
Okay, let's unpack this. You can think of this controller as like a digital jigsaw puzzle master. It actively calculates which cluster of pixels belongs on which specific screen to preserve the original image.
Exactly. And that active calculation is it's crucial because of what this hardware is physically managing. You're feeding it via 2 inputs, so either a 4K 60Hz HDMI or a DisplayPort.
Right.
And that it's pushing that out through 4 1080p 60Hz HDMI outputs.
Wait, I need to stop you there. Because if we're feeding it a pristine 4K signal, but the outputs are capped at 1080p, aren't you, inherently losing image quality by downscaling?
You would totally think so, but no. What's fascinating here is the underlying point-to-point display logic. There is actually no downscaling or messy compression happening at all.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, because a 4K image is mathematically exactly 4 times the resolution of a 1080p display, the controller simply divides the original 4K feed into 4 quadrants.
Oh, I see. So when you map those 4 1080p outputs into a standard 2x2 physical grid, they perfectly reconstruct the uncompressed 4K source.
Exactly. It's pure pixel for pixel routing.
That is super clever. And because the hardware is just routing specific pixel blocks rather than compressing a fixed image, it isn't chained to that standard 2x2 box.
Right. It has a ton of layout flexibility.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really interesting. You can basically play Tetris with your TVs to build custom menus or vertical art displays because it natively supports 1x2, 1x4, or even 4x1 layouts.
And to make those weird asymmetric layouts work, the hardware handles image rotation. So 90, 180, and 270 degrees.
Wow.
But notice how you control that, though. It's done exclusively via the included IR remote.
Yeah.
You just point, click, and the hardware rotates the pixel mapping right on the fly.
That's wild. And if you combine that with the splicing edge adjustment, you get that completely seamless illusion.
Yeah, the splicing adjustment is brilliant.
It really is. Instead of just stretching an image across a physical gap, the controller actually calculates the physical width of your TV bezels and digitally crops out the exact number of pixels that would exist in that dead space.
Right. It forces the image to flow properly.
Yeah.
It's as if a window frame is just physically blocking part of the view rather than, warping the video to fit around the plastic bezels.
Makes a huge difference. But since this hardware relies entirely on that flawless zero-latency pixel mapping, I noticed the spec sheet explicitly drops support for interlaced signals.
Yeah, like 1080i.
Exactly. Why is the lack of 1080i support a notable deal breaker for some? I imagine trying to split an interlaced signal across 4 screens creates massive syncing issues.
Oh, it completely breaks the illusion. I mean, because interlaced video draws alternating lines, it requires the hardware to buffer and deinterlace the frames to create a whole image.
Which introduces processing latency.
Exactly. And when you're managing a multi-screen point-to-point grid showing fast-moving sports or scrolling text, even a millisecond of latency between outputs means the screens fall out of sync.
Yikes. So you really need the fast sequential rendering of a progressive 1080p feed to keep the wall unified.
You have to. Progressive is absolutely necessary for a clean, fast-moving video wall.
That makes a lot of sense. It also explains the audio setup, I guess?
Yeah, they offload it completely.
Right. Audio is handled separately through just a 3.5mm de-embedded jack with an old-school manual volume knob.
Which keeps the main processor focused entirely on that critical video timing.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? Well, I think the next time you sit in a sports bar or look up at a giant digital menu, you'll know the exact 4K to 1080p hardware magic happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, it definitely changes how you look at commercial spaces. You'll start noticing the exact edge splicing calculations and, the precise layout Tetris they use to fit the room.
For sure. And it leaves you wondering, as TV bezels continue to shrink down to nothing and edge splicing algorithms get even more advanced, how long until the video walls in our everyday spaces become completely invisible, seamless digital canvases?